Mr. Eric Weidman was born on April 19, 1968, in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. During his childhood, he grew up in Lebanon and went to Harding Elementary School. Then he graduated from Lebanon High School when he was 18 years old in 1986. Throughout his years in school, he played baseball, softball, and football. He had siblings as well. He had 2 half-brothers and 2 half-sisters. He did not always plan to go into the military. He wanted to become a teacher, but after talking about this being his career with his father, he started to look into the military. No one in his family really inspired him to go into the military, though he did have an uncle that was in the service. He enlisted into the military in Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
The first thing that he did was go to basic training. He was then sent to Great Lakes, Illinois Naval Training Center to complete this part of training. The early days of basic training were a culture shock to him. The instructors told him exactly how to wear his clothing, how to shave, how to shine his shoes, and so much more. They even told the soldiers where their shoelaces had to be. Everything had to be perfect. They wanted everyone to look the same. His 2 instructors from basic training were Petty Officer McCrimmon and Petty Officer Morford. Both of these instructors' jobs was to help everyone transition easily into the Navy. They had a good sense of order and did an outstanding job training everyone.
A normal day of basic training consisted of waking up at 5:30 in the morning, got dressed, then got a short inspection. Once that was finished, everyone would march over to where they would eat, and they would only get 5 minutes to eat some food. After he finished eating, the whole day consisted of learning basic skills like folding a bed properly and shining the shoes. Also, he made sure his uniform was correct and everything was in the right place. Another thing that they learned was military language. Also, an ordinary day had classes that they would attend. Lastly, they went to different duty stations and military drill. This part of training lasted 14 weeks. Mr. Weidman's feelings toward basic training was that he didn't like it that much. The most challenging thing that he accomplished was the swimming test. It was very difficult for him because they had to tread water for 5 minutes and swim around the pool. He felt like he was going to drown, but he accomplished this. One thing that stood out most was graduation. He said it made him feel like he accomplished something.
After graduating from basic training, the next step was going to advanced or specialized training. He attended his advanced training in Great Lakes as well. This training was also about 14 to 15 weeks. His specific role in the Navy was a hospital corpsman. He went to a naval hospital and learned how to do everything he needed to know. This job is basically what a nurse does. He went to the Fleet Marine Force with the Marines because they don't have their own medics. Being with the Marines took up the majority of the first half of his career. The second half of his career, he was training naval reservists. During this part of advanced training, he also learned some specialized skills. Some of those skills that he learned were everything from drawing blood to starting IVs and doing CPR. Some others were cleaning wounds and giving medications. After he learned everything he needed to know, they just throw them into a situation where medics are needed. Everything learned in those 14 weeks were put to the test.
He then compared basic training to advanced training. He said that advanced training wasn't as structured as basic training was. In basic training, everything was planned out for them to do. They were told exactly what they needed to do. Advanced training was more relaxed, but it still taught them a lot, and it was a very important part of their training. During his training, he did make some friends that he still stays in contact with. While he was in the military, he served the majority of his time in Willow Grove, New Jersey. He said that this was where he spent most of his time because this is where he would be training naval reservists.
While he was on his journey in the Navy, he got to travel overseas. He went to Okinawa, Japan. He went over there with the Fleet Marine Force. This was the very first time that he had left the country. It was a very rewarding experience for him. If he wouldn't have been in the Navy, he would have never been able to experience that.
Yeah, it was great. Okinawa, Japan, back in 1988, and I was with the Fleet Marine Force, so I got to do some deployments. It was great though. First time I ever left the country. First time I ever slept on a plane. Huge. It was. I mean, it was a huge plane, but no, Okinawa is a great country, and from now, what it's like now, I'd love to go back, but it was very rewarding though to get to meet Okinawan people, and I was in Korea, the Philippines, so it was great. It's probably I'd never get to do something like that again.
While serving in the Navy, he was on sea and on land, but he was on land more than he was on sea. He also said that it was difficult to adapt from his normal life to being in the military. He said it was a difficult process because of all the guidelines that had to be followed. At first, it was difficult to always keep his hair short and have their uniform be perfect, but after a while, it became second nature. Later, he said that it became easy because it was cut out for them to do what they had to do.
Mr. Weidman achieved his rank of Chief Petty Officer by just being a good soldier and military person. It goes down to a selection board. They look at one's entire service record and compare to that person. Then, the top choices are selected and it goes from there. It was Mr. Weidman's first time up for this position, so it was a great accomplishment for him to achieve. He was competing against about 500 other people for the position. One of Mr. Weidman's responsibilities as Chief Petty Officer was to take care of his medical group that included 15 people. He was administrative, so he also ran the entire medical department. They didn't take care of any major medical issues. They took care of smaller things like a finger amputation or removing small pieces of shrapnel. Then, when Mr. Weidman went to Willow Grove, he was in charge of an entire clinic with about 100 people, just like when a person goes to see the doctor. Everyone that was injured was also given a rating, depending on the injury.
My May Chief, I was at Naval Reserve Center in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I was in charge of, in my medical group, I think it was 15 people. I was administrative, which I was required to run the whole medical department, and it was very challenging for me. And then when I went to Willow Grove, I was in charge of a medical clinic, just like when you go see your family doctor. Mm-hmm. And I had about 100 people there, so I was in charge of that. That was very challenging also. And then my final 4 years in the Navy, I spent in Washington, D.C., and I rated people that got injured in the military or that got sick through the military. We used to give them like a rating for, like, if you lost an arm, you got so much of a rating through the military. And that was very, it was very sad, but it was very rewarding also.
Mr. Weidman told us that he had never seen anyone die or become greatly injured directly in front of him. He said that if an injury was big enough, like something needing a surgery, they would go elsewhere for medical treatment.
Mr. Weidman spent a lot of time on the ship as well. They spent most of the time working out and keeping in shape, but they also had chores they took care of every day. They also practiced any type of chemical attacks that they were taught to do. Cleaning weapons and playing cards also took up a large portion of the soldiers' time. The main objective was to get off the ship and do an amphibious assault or take a certain area of land, although that never happened.
It was not difficult to be on the ship all the time, but it was difficult to be away from his family. He stayed in contact with his family mostly through letters because they got to send mail for free, but it was very expensive to make long-distance calls. It would take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to hear back. Weidman also had his girlfriend, who is now his wife, back home, so he missed her a lot. He didn't get many leaves either. As a soldier, one doesn't get leave at all during his training. After that, a soldier is allowed to have 30 days of leave a year, so like 30 days vacation. Soldiers are not always allowed home for holidays either. It depends on where they are stationed.
Weidman concluded that throughout his 20-year service, he never fully feared for his life. He never really thought about all the bad things that could happen to him and those around him. When the war ended, Weidman was on a ship off the coast of the Persian Gulf. The soldiers returned home by ship, taking at least a month to return.
Life was not much different for Mr. Weidman after he concluded his service. It was not that difficult for him to convert from military life back to regular life. Although some military practices and uniformity stay with you forever, Weidman said the military taught him to look at things a bit differently. Mr. Weidman was only 38 years old when he retired from the military, so it was very rewarding for him to know that he could still have another career.
Over the course of his 20-year service, Weidman learned many valuable life lessons, but the thing that stood out to him the most was taking care of your people. He told us, if you take care of your people, they take care of you. It is a very rewarding feeling to see people make advancement and come up the ranks. It makes you feel pretty good.
My biggest thing was taking care of your people, and when I found you take care of your people, they're going to take care of you. And it was a great feeling when you took care of your people and you saw them make advancement and come up the ranks. It was very rewarding for me to see that, and I still see them to this day on Facebook, and it just makes you feel pretty good that the people that were there.
While Mr. Eric Weidman was in the Navy, he earned many ribbons and medals. Here are some of the ribbons and medals that he earned. He earned 3 Navy Commendation Medals. He earned this medal for doing a great job at what he was doing. Also, he had the Navy Achievement Medal, which is normally given to junior people, but he had 7 medals for that. Then, he had the Combat Action Ribbon. This was given to him while he was in Desert Storm. Also, while he was serving in Desert Storm, he earned himself a Commendation Medal. He had 7 Good Conduct Medals. When he was with the Marines, he got a Fleet Marine Force Ribbon. For the defense of our country, he had 2 National Defense Medals, Another medal he earned was Coast Guard Commendation when he was over in Fort Dix, New Jersey. Also while he was in Fort Dix, he got the Humanitarian Service Medal. The Volunteer Service Medal was also awarded to him because of all the volunteer work he did while he was in the Navy. The Sea Service Medal was given to everyone on the ship, and he had 2 of these. The Kuwait Liberation Medal was given to him by the country of Kuwait. Lastly, he also was awarded with the Pistol and Rifle Expert Ribbon.
In conclusion, Mr. Weidman was a very valuable resource to America's armed forces. He said, "Of course, when I was in the military, I shaved every day. Now, I don't shave every day. My hair is not exactly very short anymore. I still have a very structured life, though. That never gets out of you. It stays in your life forever. I found that when you take care of your people, they take care of you. It was a great feeling to take care of your people and when you saw them make advancement and come up to the various ranks. It was very rewarding for me to see that, and I still see them to this day on Facebook. It makes you feel pretty good."